Right, just after 11 o'clock, so we'll begin. So first of all, good morning to everyone. Hope you're all very well this morning. On behalf of the dnata travel management team, a very warm welcome to each and every one of you, and thank you for giving up your time today. A special shout out to BBG for giving us this platform to engage with you today. We sincerely appreciate that. My name is Sean Anderson. I'm the Head of Strategic Sales at dnata Travel Management. Dnata, as you might know, is part of the Emirates Group. We're proudly the largest travel management company in the Middle East, and being the industry leader, it's a privilege for us to be sharing some of our insights today on a very important topic. I'll be anchoring the session today, and effectively as we look at from a COVID perspective, what the impact on the industry has had, as well as looking into the future. And obviously today is quite an important day where we as residents and citizens are now allowed to travel out of the UAE. What's the relevance of this topic? I have to tell you, in the 23 years I've been in the industry, this is truly a singular event. No other event has had such a profound impact on the travel industry and effectively the broader business community. We know, however, that corporate travel and the industry is very resilient. We know it is going to recover. And I suppose the important questions to ask is how and when and what's the shape and form of that. So these are the questions we're going to be covering today as part of the discussion. And I suppose the key part is we know how business travel plays such a critical role for the growth of economies, as well as your individual businesses. So that's really the key elements we're going to be covering. Just to take you through the agenda flow and to introduce my colleagues who are on the call with me today, I'll shortly be handing over to Savio Vaz. Savio is our Vice President for Government and Corporate Travel. He has over 30 years experience in both aviation and corporate travel. And Savio will be sharing some insights from an industry update and really giving you a feel for how we see business travel recovering, specifically from a sector perspective. After that, we'll be handing over to Alan William. Alan is our Vice President for Airline Affairs. He's truly our aviation guru. So any questions relating to airlines, he's our man to answer that today. And he'll be giving you a flavor for what you can expect at the airport and when you next jump onto an aircraft for your next trip. If you think of your next important part of your business trip, it's the hospitality, it's your hotel stay. And this is where we'll be handing over to our resident expert on hospitality, Matthew DaCosta, who's going to really take you through some also industry updates from a hotel perspective, and importantly, what you and your travelers can expect the next time you check into a hotel. You'll then circle back to myself. What I'll be then taking you through is some corporate travel tips, looking at how you can make your corporate travel programs fit for purpose in the new norm and taking into account global best practice. I'll be focusing on two key elements here, both duty of care and how you can drive further cost savings to your programs. Thereafter, I'll hand over to Jason Hooper, who's our resident technology expert. And Jason's really going to show you some real cool technology in action, specifically online and expense management technologies on how you can apply all the recommendations we're going to be discussing. So all in all, we'll probably take just over an hour to discuss the content. You've got a combined experience here of over 120 years, so you're in excellent hands. And then thereafter, we'll take some questions and answers. So just some housekeeping rules. Do please keep your mics on mute on this Teams call. Any questions that you do have as you listen to the expert speakers, do pop that into the meeting chat. We'll be taking questions from there. So I'll be making a note of that, and we'll address that after the session. If we do run out of time, we'll obviously take the questions offline and make sure we answer each and every one of them. The session is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the deck afterwards. So for those who wanting to take notes. So without further ado, let me hand over to Savio, who will take you through a travel industry update. Savio, over to you.
Yes, so welcome everybody. Let me begin by welcoming all the attendees to this British Business Group webinar. At first, COVID-19 seemed similar to the previous crises you are seeing on the slide. A hit to traffic and revenue, followed by a return to normal with full recovery after 2 years. Now, more than 3 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, with over 9.1 million globally confirmed cases and more than 470,000 deaths, we see this pandemic has the dimension of a world war. Statistics recently presented by PwC highlights the following updates. Travel restrictions are applied to countries with close to 90% of the world's population. Passenger traffic globally decreased by more than 80% from prior levels last year. Commercial flights globally decreased by more than 70% since the start of the year. Most GCC and EU airlines aircraft are grounded. Numerous fleet orders are cancelled globally and regionally. On the financial side, the revenue reduction faced by airlines this year as a result of COVID-19 far exceeds the impact from previous crises. IATA predicts that airline carriers will lose a combined $84 billion this year and almost $16 billion in 2021. With 25 million jobs at risk in the aviation ecosystem, we are in unprecedented times. Revenue drop is expected for airlines in the Middle East, with UAE and Saudi Arabia accounting for more than $5 billion each. Due to the extent of this crisis, even after recovery, normal in the travel ecosystem will not be the same as before. So before we look at the new norm for travel, let us review how we think travel will recover from this pandemic. We believe, depending on industry type, the status of flights resuming, restrictions lifted, and COVID-19 vaccine availability, travel will recover in a phased approach. We are already seeing great demand for repatriation flights, along with an increased uptake on staycation offers. As neighboring countries start opening to each other, next phase of travel would most likely be business travel to regional destinations. We have already seen Emirates opening of flight bookings for travel after 1st July to 12 Arab countries among the 40 destinations announced. As restrictions are lifted further and companies are comfortable that their employees will be safe to travel, phase 3 would likely be limited to essential long-haul destinations. We could also see, especially within the UAE, where 85% of the population are expats, that families would want to go back to their home countries to be with their loved ones. Phase 3 will further escalate in the business sector once there is a vaccine available, ensuring 100% protection for employees. Then travel would be limited to only essential trips. The vaccine developers, however, need sufficient numbers of infected people with and without symptoms to test whether the vaccine protects volunteers when they are exposed. This is becoming a challenge, with the outbreaks declining so quickly in former hotspots such as Britain, China, and some places in the US. With the potential new norm in travel, as well as the economic situation impacting a lot of people during this pandemic, leisure trips will most likely be the last to show any signs of stability. In order for us to validate this phased approach thinking on business travel, we asked 50 of our customers their views on when they plan to resume travel and what their volumes would be compared to pre-COVID, giving 3 scenarios. when flights resume, when restrictions are lifted, and once vaccines for COVID-19 are available. The survey results depicted that once the COVID-19 vaccine is made available, all our customers would resume travel, with 76% of them confirming the same volumes that they were traveling pre-COVID, and a further 17% estimating a higher expectancy of travel than previous. Industry-wise, it was interesting to note that the government and tourism industries are the front runners to resume travel as soon as flights are available, greater than that of pre-COVID. As an alternative to travel in the current situation, we also asked our customers their view on using virtual platforms for 3 different scenarios. There was a resounding uptake in virtual meetings for internal meetings, a moderate to high interest for external meetings, and consideration from 60% of our customers to utilize a virtual platform for future groups and conference meetings. The aviation industry, as well as government authorities across the world, need to create an unrestricted environment which safeguards travelers, which in turn will boost traveler confidence. With that in mind, I would like to hand back to Sean, who will take us to the next part of our discussion this morning. What can we expect when traveling in the new travel landscape?
Thanks, Savio. And a really nice scene setter for us to set the scene. So thank you for that. Just a key question, if I may, before we move on to Alan. You touched on virtual meetings, and I think everyone on the call probably agree that they're spending most of their hours all in front of their laptops attending virtual meetings at the moment. So is there a role in perhaps dnata itself, but is there a role a travel management company, or how is dnata? Is there a way a travel management company can add value in that space for our customers?
A good question, Sean. Yes, we are introducing our own dnata virtual meeting solutions. The response has been phenomenal from the customers we have already approached. If the British Business Group permits, or if any of the participants attending this webinar are interested to know more about our virtual solution, we would be more than happy to set this up. It's probably something which we need to talk more about.
Okay, perfect. Well noted. Thank you. I'm sure we'll come back to you with some more questions later. Thanks, Savio. All right, moving on to the next stage, which is the air travel update. So for all of you attendees, you're either traveling for business and or leisure, and probably feeling cooped up and can't wait to get on the next flight. So, but you've more than likely have a sense of apprehension about what to expect. So I think this is a perfect time to hand over to Alan William, who put your minds at ease. So Alan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sean, and welcome all to this webinar. It's our privilege and honor to have all of you. Of course, we'd love to see you all back flying, and that's a dream for the aviation industry and all the travel management companies globally. But of course, the first bit is, what does the airline world look like post-COVID? As Savio had alluded, it has been the industry that has been, I guess, most hit because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we've had. Overall, of course, the numbers are huge, but just to bring it back into relation, the region itself has had almost a $15 billion loss at the moment. And of course, all these reduction in traffic and the flights, with all these aircrafts being grounded as such, and airlines having a major cash crunch, because usually airlines have a cash flow of between 2 to 3 months. And looking at how long this has lasted, most of the airlines are in heavy financial trouble. So in the general terms, you will see a basic shift in the airline world. A lot of the companies, if they do not get the necessary government support, you would see them shutting down, or you would possibly see mergers happening across airline groups in order to sustain in this business. And of course, our forecast is moving forward also. You will see, because of the travel restrictions that we've spoken about earlier, you will see the airlines not being able to travel as much as they used to. So you'll see a smaller and a reduced fleet and a reduced network of frequencies of flights is what we forecast. Of course, the forecast is different across different people, but our forecast is that this will take between 2 to 3 years to recover around the region as such. But of course, not keeping the story so depressing, there has been a lot of effort by the governments to start the aviation industry, because it's a huge contributor to any economy globally. So as we move ahead, you will start seeing travel bubbles coming in. A travel bubble, what we term in the airline, in the travel arena, are basically a group of countries arranging or agreeing to allow travel between the two. You've seen the UAE government also release around 56 countries on category A and B. And of course, they will keep updating this every week with certain terms and conditions on how you could fly. You will see this evolving across globally, where countries will start allowing people that they are comfortable with, and there would be regular updates through the airline websites or the government websites on what the terms and conditions of traveling are, and which we will talk to a little bit further when we say how you need to travel post-COVID. Of course, we also believe there'll be a lot of flexibility of offers that will happen because the industry's not operated for so many months. You will see a lot of different ways of how you could purchase your travel. So we do believe there would be a change in the purchase behavior. But before any purchasing or commerce that we go to, I would first like to highlight the safety of travel and the amount of efforts the aviation industry is taking in terms of safety. Thanks, Sean. One of the key things that has gained utmost focus is the biosecurity, both in terms of the airport and in terms of the aircraft that you fly. In the aircraft, the cabin, just to put it in relation, it is changed more frequently than what air is changed in your offices or the beautiful malls that we visit over here. These modern aircrafts that we have has almost, some of these aircrafts have 100% fresh air supply, or a mix of fresh and recirculated air through the HEPA filters, which are the same ones that are used in surgical operating rooms, which kills all these viruses as such. Even the airlines, as we see, are increasing their cleaning protocols, as you may see, and every airline has listed down what they're doing in terms of having your cabins secure. Some of it is like they started using electrostatic sprayers, in-flight safety processes such as face masks, seat separations. And for you to feel comfortable, please get in touch with your TMC or the airline website to get an update on what these measures are being taken so you are comfortable. The airlines have also started making sure that the crew who travel are also protected and don't become carriers of the virus as such. For example, I'm just taking an example of Emirates, where the cabin crew have a separate area to check into the flights. The hotels, they're transported in individual transports. Their hotels, they're given single rooms and not allowed to go out anywhere. So these are just a couple of bits that the airlines are taking. The airports also have taken amazing amount of precautions. For example, temperature screening, physical distancing at the airports, regular disinfection of all the areas that are regularly used, and automation of those processes that you would regularly go through and in your security lines or your gate boarding procedures or your baggage claims. Everywhere, all airports are trying to take precautions to minimize interactions as much as possible. So the whole industry has put biosecurity as the key part to look at. Second most important thing, I think, after safety is price. And we believe that the pre-COVID, usually the price fluctuation used to be 11% range of a ticket price that you would all generally see, unless there was a sudden dip or a heavy overbooking on a particular flight. But post-COVID, we think the pricing volatility for a couple of years could exceed in the bands of 100% as such. Of course, there are factors that will suggest lower costs, for example, weak demand or lower fuel prices or an excess capacity because of the aircrafts being wanting to fly. But we also see that factors that will increase the price of the ticket, like, for example, if social distancing or the increased sanitization that the airline needs to do, and the infrastructure charges which would increase into the airports that they fly. So we see those affecting high prices. So of course, the demand during the restart will be low, with people who have immediate requirements of travel or people who've missed their families and want to go see them, is where we will see the first kind of travel, and costs could be a little low. Because, for example, in China, when they opened the skies for domestic travel was almost 40% cheaper as such. But if there are rules the governments bring in, for example, social distancing in an aircraft, which reduces the capacity of the aircraft to 60%, just to put it in correlation, an airline needs to have a minimum traffic of 75% to break even. So if they're allowed to fill only 62% of the aircraft, you would see a huge hike in price from the range of 45 to 55%. So our overall forecast that prices could be initially low, but if restrictions stay in place and if restrictions on seats are there, then and reduced aircraft utilization and increase in the service costs as such, then which would be passed on to the end consumer, you would see a considerable increase in price. So that is something we've been advising our corporate travel also to kind of consider those things when they are planning their future travel as such. The third pillar that we would like to, and the fourth pillar, sorry, is the tips to travel post-COVID. The first and foremost is, if you're sick and you're traveling, that's a no-no. So please do not travel. Even if you're not feeling a little bit not up to the weather, please do not travel, is that our key message to you. And the second most important thing that a lot of the airlines are requesting for, because there is a lot of contact tracing that will take place post-COVID. UAE government has introduced an app for every traveler to download also for contact tracing, is to ensure you have your detailed contact information you give to your travel management company when you book with them. So that is the second most important thing. The third is, for your own safety, reduce your touch points to the minimum, like use the airline's self-service portal, such as checking online. If the airline has facilities to print baggage tags and boarding passes, please do that. And the second most important thing is check the airline's rules and baggage policies, because baggage policies are going to change. The amount you could carry on board as hand baggage has changed, but each airline is coming with their policies. So please ensure you are aware of what the internal policies of the airline have changed. They're not going to be the same as they were post-COVID. Check the travel guidelines. Just like we said, UAE has introduced a lot of travel guidelines, and these are continuously going to keep changing. So ideal recommendation to you is to continuously check with your travel management company also on what the guidelines for travel are on your planned current travel. And before traveling, highly recommend that check the airline's website, because all the governments are working with the airlines that are operating into a particular country to ensure that the necessary permissions that you need to apply for or the terms and conditions are updated for the airlines. So please do that. Arrive early at the airport. Your check-in processes are going to be much more cumbersome than they were before. Our recommendation is arrive between 4 to 4.5 hours earlier than your flight. Is important also. Please follow the guidelines that are set, such as use of face masks or maintenance of physical distancing. These are key things that you would need to be aware of. And those who love to eat airline food, catering on the airlines are going to go through a change. So please be prepared for that as such. I'm happy to answer any questions. We just kept this brief, highlighting a few points. But if there's, of course, there are a couple of websites that are there. There's the Safe Travel Barometer, which kind of gives you the different features that an airline has. So we can share the link to this website. This is just one of them. There are many of them. And the second and the most reliable one is the International Air Transport Association's interactive travel regulations map, which gives you just need to click on the country that you want to visit, and it lists what are the key bits that you need to be aware of when traveling to those countries. So these are two good websites to have to update yourself whenever you would like to travel. Sean, over to you.
Thanks, Alan. I've got the wife and the kids nagging to go back and see the family urgently. So it's good to know if I'm an early adopter, I can probably pick up some really good deals. And I think the key takeaways for me, there's no blanket rule, right? Each and every trip is to look at specifically the trip and what the regulations apply on a trip by trip basis. Yeah.
Absolutely. There is no standard regulation that I would like to recommend at the moment. They're continuously changing. So that's why we always advise you to check with your travel management company. And also when you're just before traveling, check on the airline's website.
Great. Thanks, Alan, for those pearls of wisdom. Appreciate that. All right. So if you consider your business trip, you've now got a real good feel from Alan for what you can experience at the airport and on your flight. You've arrived at your destination and you're checking into your hotel before you freshen up for your business meeting. What can you expect? So great time to hand over to Matthew DaCosta to share some insights with us. Matthew.
Thank you, Sean, and good morning to each and every one of you. Continuing with what Alan was saying, the emphasis on ground services is definitely going to be on safety and hygiene. Customers can expect the creation of safe havens, whether you're talking about taking a car or some transportation from the airport to the hotel, or whether you're looking at residing in a hotel room. So what can guests really expect when they check into hotels? I think, for one, hotel stays are likely to be a stripped down affair with limited guest contact. That would mean saying goodbye to bellhop service and hello to thermal screening. Guests would be looking at touchless transactions on arrival, the possibility of checking in on their smart devices, and interaction with front office staff could be across protective barriers. We are also looking at the provision of QR codes to guests on arrival, which will allow them to upload onto their smart devices the facilities of the hotel and to interact with guest services, not to mention keyless entries as well. In-room services will also be adjusted for minimum interaction. Guests will be provided with sanitation kits and amenity packs. So the reliance on interaction with guest services would then be only to essential elements. We might also be looking at the removal of mini bars to reduce the touch elements within the room. And outside of the room, many of the luxury elements like spas and gyms will also be suspended or reduced drastically. I know that some of the hotels are looking at adapting their gyms for personal training sessions. In terms of rooms per se, there will be a cooling period that hotels will introduce post checkouts and prior to reoccupation to make sure that any contamination is eliminated. All in all, guests can expect more robust sanitation and hygiene measures being employed by guests. Cleanliness will be the key as every hotel moves to build trust with customers. We've already seen many of the leading hotel chains collaborate with some of the accreditation labels in order to get and develop their own clean and safe labels. For example, we've had Intercon collaborating with Ecolabs, Hilton with Mayo Clinic, Four Seasons with John Hopkins, Accor with Bureau Veritas, and so on. And I think in this respect, guests are going to lean more on the five-star hotels for some kind of a guidance and assurance on the clean and safe labels. From a hotel's perspective, hotels will employ hygiene managers who will provide PPE guidance for staff and implement new SOPs to integrate social distancing and signages within the hotels. We'll see a more stringent cleaning regimen, increased cleaning of high-touch surfaces and sanitation stations all over the place. We already heard Alan mention the use of electrostatic sprayers to clean public areas. The same is being done in hotels. And I know that some of the leading hotel chains like the Marriott are also testing UV light technology. Coming to food and beverage, the buffet breakfast might be a thing of the past. Guests will need to adapt to pre-plated service. Individually packaged or pre-wrapped grab-and-go offerings are likely to be the solution in the near future. Dining in restaurants would mean making reservations well in advance, as you would have less covers in restaurants. Uh, from a pricing perspective, hotels might even offer guests food and beverage credit, which would give them an option to dine in room or on site. So I've also heard some creative discussions between hoteliers with regards to taking the food and beverage experience to the home of guests in case if guests are still worried about stepping out of the safe environs of their house. That would be an interesting one on how it evolves. Enhanced digital experience is, of course, going to be now the norm. The use of digital technology for seamless check-ins by smart devices, checkouts, cash-free payments, and planning dining experiences. New technology considerations include touchless and voice-activated systems, hotel-specific apps that will allow your smart devices to enter rooms, access amenities, and control in-room functions. So all in all, hospitality will assume a whole new meaning as hotels embrace technology, enhance tools and training, and strengthen their own health, safety, and cleanliness protocols. So what's next? We've heard about the prediction in how we expect travel to evolve. The first being staycations, then possible safe corridors between countries. And we've already seen that in Dubai when we first launched the staycation offers. And within a space of 48 hours, we had over 100 room nights sold out uh, with our staycation offers both in the Northern Emirates as well as in Dubai. But what's interesting is also the new business verticals that are being created by hotels in the room segment. For example, people who want to self-isolate in comfort away from family or friends. We as Dnata Corporate Travel were able to cater to this segment, and we had over 2,000 room nights in which we were able to accommodate the requirements of some of our corporates for self-isolation. The next thing is also daycation. So moving away from overnight stays to just taking a break for the day. So it's interesting to see all these new verticals that are emerging on the room segment. I've also heard an interesting discussion recently with hotels providing a working environment for some of the companies whose employees do not have an appropriate work environment at home. It'll be interesting to see how that one evolves. Meetings and events is another uh, option that hotels are aggressively pushing with their corporates and which we can look forward to. Reconfigured meeting spaces to allow social distancing uh, and to cater to the new norms. From a product point of view, self-drive options will be, you'll see a lot more self-drive options as people will have more of a reliance on driving rather than flying to reduce the touch points at airports. We'll see a lot more on bespoke and exclusive products. For example, villas and chalets lend themselves very well to the social distancing norm. A lot more on self-catering options, in-room dining experiences, and maybe the high-end products or the five-star products will come up with a lot more secluded luxury options to guests. As as outbound travel increases, we will see more collaborative approaches between tourism boards, ground operators, as well as hotels in offering more holistic experiences. Uh, it is likely that guests will look for more bespoke experiences, specific experiences, and that'll be a really nice coming together on the bouquet of outbound experiences that will evolve in the near to immediate future. Uh, Finally, I think from a hotel's perspective, we are seeing a lot more flexibility in the cancellation and amendment policies, and that is a positive sign as the industry gears itself up and tries to cultivate more confidence amongst travelers. Over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate that. I've got one or two questions for you, which I'll keep for the Q&A section. But just a reminder for all attendees, if you do have any questions, do pop that into the meeting chat. I'll be reviewing the questions from there for the Q&A section. Right, so you've heard from the experts. Importantly, how do we take the feedback you received and infuse that into your corporate travel policies, that you make it fit for purpose, both for when you travel and your employees in the future? So what we did is we actually, as Savio mentioned earlier, we surveyed our top corporate customers, and one of the key questions we asked them was, what's their top priority for their corporate travel moving forward? And the results, probably not surprising, but number one priority that came out in a big way was duty of care. Interesting, prior to COVID, this is probably rated the third or fourth most important item. This has shot up to number one. So it's all about looking after your greatest asset, which is your people, keeping them safe. So I'll shortly be just giving you some practical examples and how you can beef up your corporate programs to take that into account. And what's moved to second, this always used to be number one, is savings and cost control. Obviously, as businesses start to recover, they really are looking for every opportunity, be it big or small, on how you can bring additional savings to the bottom line. And I'll take you through one or two examples of that as well. The good news is, more so you try and reduce manual intervention and manual work. There's technology innovations that are out there that can really tackle both key pillars of duty and care and savings. And we'll let that technology speak for itself in a few minutes. But just firstly, let's just focus on, if we look at global best practice out there, and what are some practical examples of enhancing your duty of care programs as they sit today. I think first and foremost, probably the foundation is making sure you work with a trusted travel management company partner. You've heard Alan speak about that in a few times, where on your next trip, really do take advice from your travel management company. The key is, are they giving you relevant and accurate information? You've got to have that trust factor to answer a simple question like, is the airline safe or not? So the travel management company now starts playing a more important role in terms of being the control point for your duty of care program. So have a proactive partner and not a reactive one is the foundation. Further to that, it's the suppliers you use. You heard from both Alan and Matthew on the sanitation processes that both airline and hotels are taking. It's important to have your approved lists and actually not allow your travelers to book any suppliers that really are not up to scratch. And again, a travel management company can help you, to figure out that preferred list and remove the other suppliers from the options we give travelers. Thirdly, and what we like to say at dnata is we always want to look at preventative support. How do you prevent an incident from happening rather than wait for it to happen and deal with it after the fact? And an interesting one is, if you look globally, what's the one biggest thing travel managers did globally when COVID hit? And that was changing the approval workflows and actually using technology to do that, not just an email approval. And this is where approvals we previously was perhaps with a line manager, or it was approved after the booking was done. All approval happened prior, and it stepped up a level to C-suite individuals like the HR exec or the CEO to approve. Very easily, if you're using technology for this, as borders start opening, you can very quickly switch off those elements as well to make it more accessible and align as the program and the platform unfolds. Importantly, you can also block out countries. As you know, there's hotspots at the moment. There's technology that really stop any individual even inquiring about destinations. So you really have the peace of mind that no one easily is traveling there. And there's also third-party security companies that we work with that prior and during the trip, they provide live safety and health information to the traveler themselves. And we can always help you on that if you need any further assistance on that. Moving to reactive, you can obviously do as much preventative support as you can, but in the event that one of your travelers, contracts COVID, how do you deal with that? And importantly, you really do need a reliable 24-hour service. We're hearing some horror stories of how people have booked and are sitting for hours on an airline website trying to get through to the contact center. that just doesn't cut the mustard anymore. You need an answer in minutes. And that's where the reliability of an after-hours service for your travel is key. Also, travel insurance. The key question and the obvious question is, does it include pandemic cover? There's solutions out there that do. So again, something we can assist with if you need further guidance on that, both on that and traveler tracking tools. Importantly, those are key examples, but it already ties back to the travel policy, because at the end of the day, corporate travel is an enabler for your business. You need to install traveler confidence so that your rainmaker gets on a flight, doesn't worry about anything else but signing that deal with that new customer. So how can you create the traveler confidence in your traveler community, keeping the safety front of mind? And the important is how you communicate. So a travel policy is no longer a static document. And the important is how you are communicating on a proactive basis with them, either daily, weekly, or monthly. Just moving over very quickly on control items, because that was already also a very important item in the program moving forward. The first point really dovetails very nicely with duty of care. You really do need to know where your travelers are at any given time. So you actually can no longer afford for someone to be booking out of policy and on the own website of choice. So importantly, if you've got a trusted, transparent relationship with your travel management company, you know exactly how the commercials work, and you write that into the contract. There's really no argument that, you know, it does make sense to consolidate all your spend through one trusted source. One, you'll leverage their spend as a buying power, for instance, dnata, and two is you'll leverage your own spend. And possibly, if you combine your spend, you potentially could reach the critical threshold spend to negotiate your own corporate rates, for instance, with Emirates as an example. Secondly, supplier agreements. Matthew's alluded to this. With COVID, there's been lots of changes and cancellations. Global buyers now are re-looking at their supplier contracts and actually negotiating reductions or waiver of change fees and refund fees, particularly in the event of COVID. So something to look at. E-ticket tracker, you might or might not know, there's technology solutions out there that track all unused tickets for all your company expenditure. So even when the traveler forgot to advise the travel company to put his ticket in for refund, there's solutions that track that and automatically then assist in getting your refunds back on that. And the global stat is quite, there's a lot of money left on the table, where about 4% of all tickets go left unused. And that's actually money back that's due to you. Fourthly is virtual meetings. Savio's mentioned this. There really are technologies out there that can create as much as a human face-to-face experience, but on the virtual world. So when you're looking for that product launch, you don't really need to wait for the face-to-face meeting. There's technologies that can enable that. And last but not least, and probably the biggest driver from a global best practice perspective, is really to push most of your travel bookings onto an online booking and expense management technology. We've been doing this for years, and we can safely say that there is a large reduction in your average ticket price by adopting these technologies. But enough for me. Let's let the technology speak for itself. So just conscious of time. So I'll hand over to Jason now, who'll quickly show you a quick demo of a live booking. So Jason, over to you.
Thanks, Sean. Just give me a moment to share my screen. Okay, so good morning, everyone. So I'm Jason Hooper from dnata, and I take care of travel and expense management solutions within dnata. Today, we'll be taking you through a very quick demo of our travel and expense solution. We support many solutions, including some of the big names out there: KDS Neo, Concur, Get There, and so on. The solution you're going to see today is the KDS Neo application. We rolled this application out 13 years ago in Dubai, and have carried out hundreds of implementations across 22 countries in the Middle East, Africa, and India. We have excellent content in terms of low-cost airlines and hotel suppliers and so on. Incredibly strong travel policy controls, as Sean was speaking about a moment ago. An excellent mobile application. And most importantly, we have a team sitting here in Dubai that carry out everything from the implementations, the training, support, and so on. So just moving on, this is just the system in as simple as 3 screens: search, book, and claim. The travel and expense solution is completely integrated. It's a single solution. As you can see with booking, we have a unique timeline view with Google Maps integrated in there, which is really quite impressive. And on your expense claims, it looks much like your Outlook calendar would look. And if you see this green line, that indicates a trip, and all of these little icons are expenses that have occurred during that trip. This is just the process. So starting at the bottom, your travelers have the ability to log into the solution and search for flights. Before doing that, we need to have the company's configuration in there. So the travel policy, the approval process, the employee data, the reporting fields that you need to capture on booking, who's eligible for what class of travel, where are you allowed to travel to, and so on. Once all of that's in the tool, you can log in, you can do a search. The travel policy is applied, you make a booking, that booking goes off for approval, and an email is generated to the person's boss or the cost center holder. Once that trip is approved, it goes through to dnata. The tickets or vouchers or whatever are processed and sent to the traveler. So huge savings in terms of time. And at that point, we also hand off to duty of care and security companies. So for example, ISOS, and some of the others. While you are on the trip, the traveler can pull out their mobile phone, and you'll see this at the end of my demo, and they can just point the phone at a receipt, and the tool will automatically scan the receipt and will pick up the value of the receipt, the date, the vendor, the currency, and so on. And you can essentially build your expense claims while you are still on the trip. And when you get back, all you have to do is hit submit, and your expenses go for approval. So that means quicker reimbursement for travelers. And of course, for the company, you have your expense policy applied and all of your audit rules and so on. And we also have the ability to pull through corporate card data. So if your organization has a corporate card program, that card statement can easily be integrated into the solution. So once your expenses go for approval, they are then sent through to your finance team, who then have the ability to export those expenses either automatically or manually into the finance system. And throughout this entire process, we have full reporting and audit abilities. So we're now going to move on to a live demo of the solution. So I'm just going to log in. Of course, if you have single sign-on, you wouldn't have to log in like I am now. You would just click a link and it will take you straight into the tool. And then you have a news broadcast, and you can see in bold red writing where you have some information about COVID. This links through to the latest IATA travel restrictions, and it's pretty useful, and it gives you the restrictions by country. As an organization, you can add whatever content you wish to this news page. Okay, so we're now logged in, and as you can see, the system has 2 main elements of travel and expense. These are the 2 main parts of the tool. There's also a profile where you can update your name and your email address, phone number, your seat preference. You can add in all your frequent flyer cards and all that kind of thing. Okay, so we'll just move into a trip. On the trip, you can do a flight, you can do a hotel, you can do a car, or you can do a door-to-door. Today, I'm going to show you door-to-door. And as the name suggests, it is door-to-door. So you type in the first place that you are departing from, and it uses Google Maps to retrieve these locations. So I'm going to say dnata Travel Center, which is our office. Sorry, travel. And I want to go to London. I have a meeting in Trafalgar Square, and it recognizes any geocode, landmark, street address, postcode, whatever. Okay, so Trafalgar Square, and you can then enter your dates, and you can say I want to leave at a given time or arrive at a given time. So I'll say I want to arrive 3rd of August, 2 p.m., and I'll leave on the 8th of August in the evening. Plan trip. So we now access multiple systems. So we go to the GDS that will give us all the full service airlines. We check the low cost airline websites directly. and various other suppliers. At this point, the travel policy is also checked. So am I actually allowed to travel to the UK? What class of travel am I eligible for? All of these rules are applied. So over here, we have a timeline of the entire trip, and my trip starts at 19 minutes past 11. I need to take a taxi from my office to the airport. I probably should have said my home address, not the office. If you don't want to take a taxi, you can also look at the alternatives. So we have taxis, which is a transfer service. You can have an RTA taxi, which will cost you 39 dirhams, and it even offers the Dubai Metro. It's fully integrated with Google Transit, so any public transport system in the world is available in here. And as you can see, it tells me I need to do an 11-minute walk to Business Bay Metro Station, take the red line towards Rashidia, and get off at Terminal 1. So then I have the next step in the journey is the flight. And it's offered British Airways. Now, interestingly, it's offered a business class promo fare. Why is it offered this? Business class is compliant if a flight exceeds 5 hours. This is my company's travel policy. I can, however, go down and choose an alternative. So there's an Emirates option there. I can also go in and view a list of hundreds of different options, and you can filter by recommended, earliest, the fastest, the cheapest, which happens to be Turkish Airways. We didn't offer Turkish because it's indirect. This company prefers their travelers to travel on direct flights. So what I'm going to do today is I'm not going to take the BA one. I'll go for Emirates, but I'm going to go for a higher fare type, just to show you what happens if you don't select the cheapest fare. So I'm not going to go for the business special. I'm going to go for a more expensive option, perhaps in business flex, which is a bit more. So it's just repricing it. Oh, sorry, let me just go back and change that. It didn't like that Emirates option. This is the challenge during COVID. A lot of flights are not fully available on the system yet. So we'll stick with this BA one. When I arrive in London, it recommends that I take the Piccadilly line through to Leicester Square Station, and then I have a 6-minute walk through to Trafalgar Square. So really useful for a traveller, to know how do I get from the airport to my meeting place, and even more useful for someone who's perhaps not been there before. So over here, I have my meeting location, and as you can see, there's Leicester Square Station, and there's the meeting in Trafalgar Square, and there's my hotel. So in one screen, I can see the train station, the meeting, and the hotel. And we even have Google Street View. And if you drop that little man outside the hotel, you'll be able to see the street outside the hotel. So I can see Trafalgar Square is over there, and this is the entrance to the hotel. And it's interactive. You can walk around and check out the area. Now, the system has offered a hotel, Trafalgar Curio Hilton St. James. It happens to be non-compliant, and this is because it exceeds my company's rate cap policy, which is 121 euros a night. So if you exceed that, it becomes non-compliant. Now, very difficult to get a compliant option in central London at that price, so I've got no choice but to go with this one. I can, however, choose an alternative if I wish, and you can also view the hotels on Google Maps. I then have my transport back to the airport after my 3 days there. And I'm not going to take the transfer. I'm going to take public transport. So I'm just changing that. And I'll just remove this, and just remove that as well. Okay, so I have my trip. It's all ready to go. Over here, it will show you what was recommended and what you've booked. If you've booked something more expensive than what the system has recommended, it will show that you have been non-compliant, and you would have to then enter a non-compliancy reason, which I will have to do for this hotel. On the side, you can also see that what we're actually booking. So we're booking the flight, we're booking the hotel, and then below that, we've added in estimated additional expenses. So lunches, dinner, breakfast, and perhaps you hosting an event or something, you can also edit these and add in any other expenses that you want your boss to see prior to booking or prior to approving this trip. So I'm now going to go ahead and book this. Do I want to select seats? And then you have to accept the rate conditions of the hotel. Typically, we would show flexible options, which is what you need in corporate travel, especially in these times. And just the fare conditions of the flight. Why are you booking a non-compliant hotel? So I could say I'm traveling with a customer or whatever that reason might be. These are, of course, customizable. How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for your hotel? And then any reporting field. So, and this could trigger the approval process. So if I choose marketing, it'll go to the head of marketing for approval, and it will now create the booking. And then we'll very quickly move on and do a quick expense claim. So at this point, the booking is created. Oh, I didn't want to book my hotel. Okay, so anyway, the booking gets created and it then goes off for approval. And once approved, the tickets are then processed. I also just wanted to show you one other thing. Just on the flight, if you notice these little icons over here, this is what's included on your flight. So this British Airways business class includes Netflix streaming at a price. It has power and USB, it has seat back, on-demand video, a premium meal, beverages, and a private suite. In July, we are also adding in COVID-specific information to this area. So you will know what measures that airline is taking in terms of aircraft cleaning and PPE and so on. So it'll appear in that exact same spot. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is share my screen, my mobile phone screen. And we will do an expense claim. So that's my phone you're looking at now. And I'm just opening up the app. And it has biometrics, so fingerprint or eye scan. And as you can see at the top, I've got the options to do a new trip, a new expense, or a report. I have a trip that's already booked in there to Manchester. I'll just show you what that looks like. It's exactly the same as what you've just seen. The experience on the website versus the mobile is almost the same, and really, really easy to use. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is capture a receipt. So just clicking on the camera icon in the bottom right, it then launches the camera on my phone. And I can capture a receipt. So I have a receipt here for passport photos. So I'm just going to take a photo of that and just crop it. Next. And what is this? Now, these are various different expense types. Now, as an organization, you'll be given a choice of hundreds of different expense types, and we can code them and place them into the tool for you. So just scrolling down, I'm just going to choose. So you have, various items related to air travel, lodging, allowances, meals, and I have ID photos and other miscellaneous expenses. So where did this expense occur? So say it was in Dubai. And the value has been picked up automatically, 21 dirhams from the receipt. You can add in the reason for the expense, cost center, who was the vendor, and any other comments, and confirm. That's how easy it is to add an expense line. So imagine you waiting for a taxi after a meal. You can just very quickly take a photograph of that receipt and it sits here. Now, if you look on the screen, I have a whole bunch of expense lines in here. So these are all individual expenses. So I have a hotel bill for £350. I've got dinner, I've got breakfast, I've got a taxi, and I've got the ID photos I just added now. Now, all I have to do to submit this is just select them all. And move them into an expense report. So I have one over here for London, August 2020, move them into there. And all I have to do is then submit. And you can see that some of these are non-compliant. So for example, my breakfast is non-compliant. I've exceeded the maximum value that's permitted in the expense policy for breakfast. And also my dinner is non-compliant as well. And you can see if there's no receipt or if it contains a receipt. And all I have to do from here is hit submit. And that then goes to my boss for approval. Once my boss approves, it goes through to finance and ends up in the finance system and goes off to payroll, and I get reimbursed. So that's just the final screen before you submit. So it shows how much I've claimed and how much is actually authorized. So I've exceeded what's actually authorized by the policy, but I can confirm submission anyway, and it would then be up to my boss to allow that to go through or not. Okay, so that's done. So that's all submitted and is currently pending approval. You can also view a PDF version of the expense claim. So if your organization had a manual process where you still required the travelers to print the claim off and manually staple the receipts, then you would just print this off and staple the receipts and hit submit. All right, so that's it for the live demo. Just moving back into PowerPoint. So just a few points just on the reasons why you should unify your travel and expense programs. We find today that a lot of our customers might use an online booking tool, but they claim their expenses using a very old process, perhaps through an old ERP system, or even just a manual spreadsheet. So there are many benefits to unifying your travel and expense programs into one single application. And firstly, and most importantly, improved compliance. Everything is captured in one place. You have complete data for T&E spend in one area, and this will reduce fraud. You have your VAT and taxable benefit calculation automatically done in there. Better decision making. You saw when I booked that trip, it showed how much extra I was going to spend on top of the flight and the hotel in terms of taxis and meals. So an approver has, is able to make a better decision when approving by seeing that total cost of trips. Improved cross-functional relationships. Typically, travel will sit under a travel department or under procurement or maybe under admin, and expenses will most of the time sit under finance. By combining these two programs, you are bringing those departments closer together, and there's many benefits for that. You will also improve your online booking tool adoption by unifying your travel and expense programs. And there's many benefits to improving your online booking tool adoption: lower cost, better visibility, and most importantly, duty of care, because your bookings are passed off automatically to your security provider. Cost savings. 85% of our customers that have implemented Neo Travel and Expense have said that they've achieved a cost reduction or savings from this. And finally, improved travel experience. One tool, one login, one interface, one place to do all your travel and expense claims. And for travelers, that means being able to submit your expenses before getting home, and swift processing of travel requests and expense claims. How are savings achieved? Fraud detection. There are numerous fraud detection measures in place there, including duplicate receipt detection and other items like that. VAT reclaim is a big one. You can run a report and very quickly see how much have I spent on hotels in Europe, and you're eligible for a VAT refund on that. The system is very quick to generate those reports and help you get that VAT back. Greater visibility, greater buying power, not just on air and hotel, but on other services related to the trip. Process improvements, and finally, accuracy. That's it from I'll hand back to Sean. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them. If you would like a deeper dive into the solution, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. And I think a big thank you to our panel of experts for their insights today. I appreciate that. Looking at the time, I think we're just over the hour, so we're all good to take a few questions. Just a reminder, if anyone does want to ask a new question, just pop it into the chat. We'll get to that. So there's a few in, so let me just go through them. There was a first question in here regarding pricing strategies, but I think, Alan, you did cover that extensively, so thank you. But maybe just a follow up on this one, and Matthew, I'll throw this your way if you don't mind. For the attendees, just from a pricing point, if anyone on the call has got a corporate rate with any hotel at the moment, and it's normally a static rate, it's a fixed rate, no matter what the time of year, is now a good idea to switch to best available? You know, there's always the argument between the two. So can you share some of your thoughts on that?
Sure. Traditionally, static rates have always been the norm, but I think in today's scenario, the static rate approach cannot keep up with the dramatic changes in demand that are occurring due to the COVID-19 situation. So possibly dynamic rates is the better way to go in the short to the medium term. Of course, you have distinct advantages in this period because it allows for a greater breadth of properties in a company's program. And in the current scenario, the knowledge that a company is going to get a discount is a positive, because even from an SME perspective, you stand a better chance of getting a dynamic rate today versus a static rate. Of course, it depends on several factors like location and the volume of business.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate that. So I think that gives a good flavor for pricing strategies for the short to medium term. Moving on, we have another question on the theme of contactless travel. How else can travel management companies assist in minimizing contact as part of the travel experience? Savio, perhaps I can throw this one your way if you don't mind. You're just on mute, Savio.
Thank you. Sean, good question that was. Wherever possible, passengers should be encouraged to complete check-in processes prior to arriving at the airport. Online check-in, mobile boarding pass, off-airport baggage tagging, online duty-free shopping, and other initiatives, including rapid COVID testing, if required, will contribute to the reduction in the amount of contact with airport staff. And this is clearly what Alan covered also in his update. Currently, Dubs, which is a dnata-owned company, provides the above for Dubai Airport, and I believe they will soon be doing the same for Abu Dhabi Airport.
Okay, great, thank you. While we're up, there's another interesting question that's coming here regarding what's our thoughts on cash versus card over the short and long term. Savio, while you're up, do you want to perhaps give your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, so I presume I saw that question. I presume we are talking about, in this question, I presume it's about leisure travel. Yeah, and because if it is corporate travel, then definitely I would answer with card would be a preference, because at these times when there is a cash flow situation in terms of our businesses, because travel is down, it would be definitely better for all travel management companies to go on a card payment solution. This would benefit and help the travel management company, because don't forget, costs have been building up versus travel that's taken place for the last 3 to 4 months. So any upfront travel with, upfront payment would benefit a travel management company and help them survive this crisis.
Okay, and I suppose from a leisure side, I suppose with the theme of contactless travel, I think merchants will be pushing to rather go with a card payment, because it's simply a, it's a tap on the card machine rather than handling cash. Yeah,
absolutely. So it also goes with the contactless travel theme, so to speak. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Moving on, Caroline's got a very good question that's come in, is how do we think this will impact the consultant superhighway? I absolutely agree that Dubai to KSA is the consultant superhighway. So normally that's on a Thursday night at the airport when it's packed. So with these quarantine measures, how do you see this unfolding, Alan? As our expert on airlines, can I pass this your way? You're on mute, Alan.
I think the consultants won't be very happy with this, because what our feedback from the airports and the slot approvals for the airlines to operate is that they are going to take into consideration the amount of time that it would take for check-ins. And of course, the airlines will not operate the same kind of frequencies that we are seeing now. We saw in the pre-COVID era, in the post-COVID era. So again, like we said, there is going to be an impact on the schedules that airlines offer. So there has to be a change in the behavior of travel, especially within the GCC also. And that needs to be taken into consideration when corporates are bringing in their new travel plans post-COVID.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate your inputs on that one. One more question that's come in before we'll wrap up, and this is regarding the hospitality side, Matthew. So we'll throw this your way, where we have attendees who've obviously been on staycations, experienced what the hoteliers are doing, and I'm even seeing buffet services are still being offered. So based on your feedback, do you want to perhaps provide a response on that?
Yeah, I did encounter that myself. And I think in the initial weeks when hotels opened up, they were kind of knocking around, trying to understand what exactly is required to put these social distancing norms into place. But as the weeks have progressed, there is a very clear evolution on SOPs and standards and rules and regulations and terms of engagement in keeping with the social distancing norm. And that is going to become the order of the day as we move forward and hotels do open up. And they will take these guidelines from the local authorities and the governments to ensure that these measures are in place.
Okay. And I suppose that ties back to the corporate program as well, right? Because there's no one global standard that's monitoring every hotel. So the key is, who are those preferred suppliers you're willing to let your travelers stay at that meet these minimum sanitation requirements? So, and that's when we can play a role to assist on the safety side. Okay.
That's right.
Awesome. All right, I think that's all the questions in. We'll give you 15 minutes back on your day. So I think time for a wrap up from my side and the team. I think, again, a very big thank you to BBG for allowing us to engage with you today. I trust that the feedback you've heard is really going to set you well as you are realigning your corporate policies and looking at areas of improvement. We will be sharing the content afterwards together with our contact details. So if there's any follow-up you'd like to engage us on, we'd be happy to do that. And last but not least, go well and keep safe. Thank you for your time.
Thanks all.
Thank you.